Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to part 3 of what I consider to be the best battle system in every JRPG series. What? It's a cactus, man! Come on! It's Mexico! Cactuar from Final Fantasy? I'll be covering Final Fantasy today? Yeah. Let's begin. Final Fantasy. For this video I won't be including the MMORPGs nor any of the spin-offs out there, although I have to admit that most of them don't really have great battle mechanics aside from the legendary Final Fantasy tactics. I could have chosen that one, but you guys know me, I'm not the biggest fan. So which main Final Fantasy has the best combat? I actually consider Final Fantasy X simply because it doesn't have the active time battle system. That's right, you can take your time deciding what your characters will do. And while it does have its interesting features, it honestly doesn't stand out that much. It's great, sure, but it's just a regular everyday turn-based combat. So I went for my favorite game in the series, Final Fantasy IX. You've noticed I'm not the greatest fan either of the active time battle thing, which pressures the player to choose their character's actions as fast as possible because battles are played on real time. I think it's a bother, to be honest. Despite that, however, I picked 9 for a few number of reasons. First, it went back to having 4 party members instead of 3 like 7 and 8 did. Second, because it went back to having a 2-player co-op mode, unlike its 2 predecessors. Third, because it has a better interface than them, at least much better than Final Fantasy VIII. I mean, it's far easier to understand, interact with, and enjoy. The trances were a very cool idea as well. They actually happen somewhat often, so I was always looking forward to them. The more attacks you receive, the faster their bar will fill up. And I just love doing massive damage to the enemy with some of my characters. Unfortunately, trance doesn't carry over for the next battle. It's automatic and you can't control it, so characters trance immediately when their bar fills up. That kinda sucked, but it didn't really bother me that much. In the end, all I have to say is that this battle system is great, but in my humble opinion, none of the battle mechanics in any main Final Fantasy title are that great, at least not compared to some of the other JRPGs out there, including the ones we've seen in this series of videos. All of the Persona main games have been turn-based, even its RPG spin-offs on the 3DS. Which one has the best combat? Well, unlike Final Fantasy, the battle mechanics in this series has always been better with each entry, so it's safe to assume that Persona 5 has the best one of them all. My favorite is Persona 3. I belong to a very small minority of people who actually enjoyed its battle system, even though you couldn't directly control your party members. That was gone in the PSP version, so it resembled more the combat in Persona 4. Both games have really cool systems, but I do think Persona 5 is slightly better. My reasons are very few, as a matter of fact, because there's not that much of a difference between them. For once, I thought the Baton Pass feature was pretty cool. It was so useful when you wanted to exploit the enemy's weaknesses and needed another character to do it. This way, you would achieve the all-out attack faster. I guess the fact that they can use gun attacks is also interesting. It's a small detail to spice things up is all. And then there's the hold up feature. If all enemies are down, you can change the all-out attack to enter negotiations. If the main character is on the same level or higher than the demon you want to recruit, it's a guarantee they'll join. You couldn't recruit them back then in previous games, right? Well, now you can, like in the normal Shin Megami Tensei games. Difficulty felt more balanced than at least the 2 previous games. The vanilla versions of Persona 3 and 4 were quite a challenge even on normal mode. Persona 5 still engages the player on normal, but it balances more the disadvantages and the penalties. Most other characteristics of this battle system are just like in the previous games, so that's it. Honestly, you can't go wrong with either system. I just felt Persona 5 had some small extra features that made the combat more fun, which is why I think it's the best system in the series. There's 3 Drakengard games and 2 Nier games so far. All part of the same universe, however disconnected they may seem sometimes. Each and every one of them is fast-paced hack and slash, although I always felt the first one was slower than the others. The second game is more balanced, which I think it's the best one out of the 3, and the third one was crazy, chaotic, and disastrous half of the time. Nier Gestalt is my favorite in the series, and I love its battle mechanics as well, but I have to admit that Automata tops them all almost by a landslide. You're fighting with lightspeed androids all the time, so of course the fighting had to be extremely fast-paced, right? Hell, it even feels that way when using the bigger and bulky weapons. And I know the Drakengard games had their dragon battles, which were basically third-person shooters with questionable cameras and controls. Nier got rid of that, but introduced a fine mix of shoot-'em-up elements. In fact, Automata has several missions that involve these shooters, and they control surprisingly well. Not exactly 2D, horizontal, vertical, nope, completely in 3D. I'm not a fan at all of these types of games because I get lost and dizzy occasionally, but these bullet hell missions were very fun to play. In addition to the enjoyable hack and slash, the androids have these little machines called pods at their control. You'd think having them shoot will stall your character or your own vision, but nope, you can do both at the same time, quickly mastering the controls. Sure, it's hard to pay attention at every single thing going on at the screen when this happens, but like I said, it's no big deal. Especially because the camera, something very important in action RPGs, shows everything nicely. It doesn't move around like a freaking tornado, and it's easy to control. Another neat feature of it is that it changes perspective on certain areas, going from side-scrolling or top-down view even. Something previously introduced in Gestalt but way more polished here in Automata. Also similar to the Flash Guard in the Ys series, if you successfully evade an attack, you become invulnerable for a short period of time, also doing massive damage when you time your counterattacks. Finally, each of the 3 main characters has their own extra forte. 2B can handle 2 weapons, and you can switch to them at any time. 9S has these lunatic hacking missions, which are a variation of a top-down view shoot-'em-up, and A2 can sacrifice health to boost her attack power. No wonder this game was a huge commercial success. It's not only because of the sexualized female androids, but also because the combat is just so goddamn great. Grandia is a cult classic series that's nowadays dormant. Only 7 games were released, including a Japan-only MMORPG. So out of the 4 titles we did get, which one has the battle system? The first game led the basis of the influential combat of the series, and it simply evolved from there. So once again, I believe choosing the last in the franchise is the best of them all, Grandia 3. Go ahead and trash the story and characters if you want to, just let me remind you we're discussing the battle system here. Going all the way from the first game to this, it was perfected. The controls, menus, and interface alone are enough reasons to crown it above Grandia 2 or Extreme, but they're almost the same system. Except Grandia 3 changed the meter gauge to a dial one, which was now circular, so time and distance affect the overall battlefield. The dial shows both the characters and enemy icons, depending on the actions they will select and execute, and depending on the agility, as usual, the faster their turn will come. After the action is selected, their icons will have to go through the red bar of the dial. Magic, skills, and criticals progress slowly during this period of time. Normal attacks, also known as combos, are an execution of 2 strikes that usually move faster, but if you select a critical and it's executed faster than the enemy's action in the red gauge, you will be able to completely cancel whatever move they had planned. Certain skills can also cancel or delay the enemy attacks. Sometimes, skills and magic can delay the enemy's attacks, but they can also do the same to you. For example, if one enemy starts casting magic and gets attacked, your other character can do a critical. Their icon will overtake the red gauge and manage to cancel it. So there's a little bit of strategy and timing involved to really exploit this game's battle system. Last but not least, the aerial attacks. If a combo is performed during an enemy that's temporarily suspended in the air, an aerial attack is executed by the other character. Obviously, you need to have both characters having selected the same enemy to attack. These are the neat features that made me choose this battle system over the previous games in the series, so those are my reasons why I think it's the best. You know how the Phantasy Star series completely changed, like Final Fantasy, from turn-based to action? After the first saga on the Master System and Genesis was over, Phantasy Star Online came into existence. Sega wanted to try the console MMORPG trending back then. Most of their titles from both the Online and Universe saga also included campaign modes. And yes, they were full stories like any other action RPG out there. So which one has the best battle system of them all? Let's take out the action games first because it'll be faster, you'll see why. Leaving the recent release of Online 2 out because it doesn't really have an offline story mode, I'm gonna choose Nova. It was originally released on the Vita and never came out of Japan. I did play it for a little bit, but I got stuck quicker than I expected because I just don't understand Japanese, so I couldn't progress any further. Therefore, I can't properly explain the system. All I remember is that the controls felt better than the 4 previous games of the Universe saga or the initial Online games. And out of the Universe saga, I think Portable 1 and 2 are the epitome of the system. However, it's best to play them on a PS Vita than on the PSP with its clunky and small joystick. But you know what? We're judging this series as a whole, so both turn-based and action have to compete just like I did with Final Fantasy. So only one game can come out the winner. It's predictable, but my pick is Phantasy Star 4 on the Sega Genesis. I like a lot the perspective of showing up the enemies as if they were right in front of you. The party members will appear at the bottom whenever you're selecting their action. It may seem irrelevant, but back then it was innovative from the regular first-person views in most turn-based RPGs. The animations whenever they attack are also really cool. For the first time, there were combination attacks, some of them pretty useful against bosses. There's not much to compare with the previous 3 games, as the menus, the options, and the names of the attacks are pretty much the same. Phantasy Star 4 just has better controls and interface, and I know I've been saying this a lot, but I'm a balanced guy. I like my battle systems challenging, but not as hardcore as in the previous 2 games, which means there's still some grinding to do, but not that much. Overall, battles just flow faster and swifter, look cooler, difficulty is high but not frustrating, and it makes you abuse the skills, magics, buffs and debuffs more often and more strategically. For its time, it was an incredible improvement, and I'd say it still holds up nowadays quite formidably. Therefore, I think it's the best battle system in the series. Today we saw 5 more series narrowed down by their battle mechanics, some of them on the classic side, others in the innovative side, spamming originality. Remember, this was part 3, there are more series to come, so I'll see you in part 4. Thanks for watching!